Testing, 1, 2, 3. Oh. All right. Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Good. All right, so my name is Danny Ho, and I was chosen as one of 8 Christian scholars this year to explore vocation and talk about how vocation gives us purpose in our lives. A little bit about myself. I'm a first-generation student born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm a third year studying finance, and my leadership activities involve leading the Pan-Asian Peer Mentoring Program and more. So today I'm extremely honored to introduce today's speaker for our Uncovering Vocation series. Every second and fourth Tuesdays of the month, we gather in this place to hear a member of our community share a part of their vocation story with us. In 2 weeks, on October 24th, we will hear from Jad Habib, academic technologist in our IT department. Today, we will get to hear from Sergio Madrid from our education department, and some facts about him. Sergio Madrid was raised on the US-Mexico border. He earned his doctorate in special education with a certificate in autism spectrum disorders from New Mexico State University. His research interest includes fathers of children with autism, social perception of individuals with disabilities, neurodiversity, crip theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion. His work has been published in the European Journal of Teacher Education, the Journal of College Orientation, Transition, and Retention, and EBSCO's Pathway to Research. In addition, he has contributed to research and writing on the US-Mexico migration issues and social justice. He has completed a research internship at America University in Spain and holds a certificate in effective college instruction from the American Council on Education. In 2022, he served as the education department. He joined the education department at Augsburg University as a faculty member and currently serves as the assistant director of the Thrive program. Please, everyone join me in welcome Sergio.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah. So, thank you to Jeremy and this beautiful project and everybody that is involved. It's really beautiful work they do, and I'm honored to be here this morning. I wasn't sure what I was going to do this morning, but I decided that writing a letter from the heart will be the best way to go. So if you allow me, I will read this letter to you all. And yeah, so the first man I ever loved and respected was a teacher. But the first man who ever broke my heart was also a teacher. Consequently, I always wanted to be a teacher, and I never wanted to be a teacher. Although I understand this idea is contradictory, for me it was as natural as breathing. While growing up in rural and forgotten Mexico, I always looked up to my father. He was a respected man and a cherished leader of his community. The farmers, artisans, and elder leaders of this rural landscape always asked for his opinions. They trusted him with their children's education, yet at the same time, this caring social leader and excellent teacher will open a bottle and become distant and careless to his family. I always needed clarification on this big contradiction. How could such a remarkable man be one person in his classroom and another at home? Moreover, how can he always go above and beyond his line of work and demonstrate what cariño is all about to his pupils? And cariño is this word we use in Spanish to use as endearment for any beloved person, like a child, like a parent, like a student. And however, at home, cariño went out the window. So here I was, a 5-year-old, admiring a teacher and detesting one at the same time. I oftentimes wish for a teacher instead of a father. Why couldn't I be one more in my dad's classroom? But that never happened. Time went by, and I began schooling, but I was quiet. Beyond quiet, I will say, I was not using my words. I limited myself to observing and trying to make sense of everything. No one really cared if I learned or not. My first teacher was impatient. She wanted to get me out of her classroom. She took me in only after my mother and grandmother advocated for me. Still, she sat me in the most distant corner where I wouldn't bother her or any of my peers. It was a frustrating and isolating experience. I even wish I didn't have to go to school anymore. I hated it. It wasn't until my second year, my second school year, that this beautiful teacher, Magali, came into my life. She was young, she was energetic, and inexperienced. But most importantly, she wouldn't take no for an answer and was not ready to give up on me. Thus, while with little to no resources, she spent extra time after class teaching me phonics, language, and things like that. Her lack of skills, she patched up with cariño. To this day, I'm not sure what she did, but I'm sure she left a profound mark on me. There I was again, admiring another teacher and wanting to be one. Later, we moved to a big city on the US-Mexico border. I grew up a fairly successful student, maths aside, wanting to be a teacher until I hit high school. Different factors added up and debunked this teaching nonsense. I was kind of a sports celebrity, too good for teaching, the paycheck wasn't the best, and it was a demanding, stressful career. At least it was for my high school teachers who had to bear with guys like me. So let me put it this way, I was not the model student. Consequently, I signed up for business school. Somehow this made sense to me. Business equals big paychecks. Nevertheless, no one told me that there will be a massive amount of maths involved in the process. And no one talked to me about accounting courses, finance, economics, and so on and so forth. As you may guess, I dropped out. I was miserable. I did not belong there, not my place. I spent the following years living my life and flying as far as possible from teaching. I bussed tables, cooked meals, did dishes, and even joined the corporate world as a Walmart associate. I had too many jobs. Remember, I was poor, brown, young, and restless back then. But you know, I was constantly experiencing this discomfort. Something was missing. Beside the big bucks, something was off. Since I was still brown and poor, but not too young and restless anymore, I decided to return to school and better my life. So I figured out I always liked teaching, but wanted something other than a teacher. And I was good at sports, at least I used to be. So why not becoming a physical educator so I could train my students, but not be their teacher necessarily? Yes, I was still running away from teaching. Years passed, and here I am, beginning my field experience. It was my first time in an elementary classroom in decades, and there he was, this quiet and gentle student with the most gorgeous smile ever. I noticed he did not interact much. He was limited to smiling, even when the teacher or his peers said something awful, so he will be just smiling. 3 or 2 classes later, I asked the host teacher, "What about that student?" He simply answered, "Never mind him, he's our word. He's not really here with us." I was thunderstruck. It took me a long time to process that. I kept thinking that years have passed and things have changed not much for us. We are still sitting in the darkest corner of the classroom, trying to get by, being good boys, and not interrupting our peers' learning. So I told myself, I need to stand up, and I need to be on the right side of history. From that moment over, I never stopped. I finished my bachelor's with an emphasis on adapted physical education. Then I went after my license as a speech pathologist, and finally I completed a PhD in special education with emphasis on autism. So, in conclusion, I shouldn't be here today sharing with you all, and yet here I am. After all the defies and adverse life experiences I had with the educational system and in my personal life, I ended up caring little about education, and that was reflected in my whole college experience. I struggled all the way through. I skipped too many classes. I failed too many courses, and it was all a challenge for me because nothing motivated me to put in the effort to be successful and to do more than just get by. Even when I returned to my PE license and I had this fair level of motivation, I still did not care much about education until I heard that calling from the last row and the most distant corner of a forgotten classroom. Only when I was ready to listen carefully, that's when I found my purpose. After that, I started developing all of this work ethic and grit that I never had in my whole life. Now I was enjoying it, not because it was easier. Actually, it was a lot more complicated because I was working, but also trying to get my bachelor's and all that. But because there was something bigger than me driving me, let me tell you this. There's something about having a purpose that make us all work harder, that makes the battle worth it, that makes those hours and the energy and the sweat and the blood and the tears worth it when we have a reason to actually work. Someone once said, don't follow your passion, but always bring it with you. We've been told that we're supposed to be passionate about everything we do, that passion is what we should always follow, but you know, the truth is there are a lot of parts of life that we're not necessarily passionate about. You know, passion is a feeling, and passion is a great feeling. We should feel it as much as we can, but we're not constantly feeling it. So when you follow your passion, it can be difficult because there are those times when it runs out or you're not feeling it. Then you are starting to question, why am I doing this work? But instead, when you figure out what your purpose is, what actually lights your fire, what's meaningful to you, what's worth the effort, what's worth the energy, what's worth the blood and sweat and tears when we have a purpose driving us that make us overcome anything that gets in our way. When I think of my calling, I think of an intense why that allows me to withstand any crisis. There was a lot of shelter becoming a teacher. They were all worth figuring out because that why was burning bright, and that why is still burning bright for me. So my question for you today is, what is your why? What is your purpose? What is the thing that drives you most? That when you are not feeling the passion, you still know that there is something meaningful worth chasing after? Then I will also ask, how can you instill that sense of purpose in the people you work with? How can you foster that in your educators if you are an administrator? Whether you're a teacher, how can you foster that in your students? And if you're a student, how can you foster that in your neighbors? There is so much power in knowing purpose and knowing that the work we're doing is meaningful. That's why I started caring about special education, and that's why I became an educator myself, and that's why I continue to be one. Because there's something about purpose and knowing that we have the ability to help bring dignity, skills, and belief to our communities, to our students. And I tell you this, if I weren't pursuing this path, that will keep me up at night if I wasn't chasing my purpose. So thank you all for listening, and thank you for being here.